fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Well, it's a very wet day as we swing up back over across the pond. We've had now 2 races in the UK for the preseason race of round number 3, and then we, of course, have had the 2 races over in the States. And the last race we had here in the UK, it was a wet track as well with Oulton Park, so it's almost fitting that it's torrential downpour once again at the Snetterton Racing Circuit for round number 3. Welcome to the Beer League and to, well, the 3rd race of our 10th season of competition. Mine is Olin Ramble alongside Austin Edstrom. We're bringing you all of racing action from start to finish. Austin, it's another wet track, and that's going to be critical tonight because not only is it a wet surface, it's a brand new track. 10 seasons, we have never raced at the Snetterton Racing Circuit. We're running the 200 layout tonight, a nice mix between the 100 and the 300 layouts. You could call it the outer layout. It skips all of the infield stuff at this facility, but a brand new track and torrential downpour, that's how you know you're in for a wild ride.
Oh, absolutely. We're getting completely wet and wild for Koffard's Wet Bomb Hole Grand Prix tonight, and I just cannot wait to get this thing started. Koffard did a great job with the track pick and the torrential downpour conditions, although it is going to lift a little bit here for the heat race session, I believe. The track should still be nice and wet, but we're not going to have the torrential downpour going on during the heat race. But I do believe after the time skip, after the heat race, and we get back into the main event, we're right back at 100% precipitation. So the main event should be super, super rainy. Maybe not right at the beginning, but at least towards the back half of that thing, it is going to be insanity the entire way through.
Aaron Thacker took his first win on his 38th start just last week at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. He now stands atop the point sports tied with Alexander Bueller, the driver that was trying to chase him down to take that first win away. Koffard has punched his ticket into 3rd for the time being, but right now it's still close up at the front.
Yeah, super tight up at the top of the point standings between Thacker, Bueller, Koffard, Ronenberg, Scott Fleming, Ron Wolf. I mean, all over 100 points, so all within 18 points of the race lead. And I mean, that just lends itself to a really good season. And I feel like this car is gonna kind of lend itself to parity all season long. It's been tough to pass, so track position is paramount. And I do think that kind of leads itself to parity in a league where the top 12 flip after the heat race.
And it is still Hot Wheels on top of the Teams Championship, already pulling out a gap over 99 Movies. 99 Movies jumping up to the 2nd spot. Sierra Team 6 and Flying Donut Motorsports going to exchange blows. And the Misfits bumped down to the, I guess some might call it the rightful spot for them, down to the bottom of the boards with Scamaria Fradrari. Keep getting that name muddled up. It's such a tongue twister. They'll move up to the 8th place spot, though. Classic Club Click and the Schnitzing-Giggle crew, they're going to remain in 6th and 7th, respectively, with the Fluorescent folks being bumped down to 3rd.
Yeah, Fluorescent, like you said, they lost a spot, but don't count those guys out. Those high-leer cars are going to be coming around here really, really fast, and probably the easiest cars to see tonight with the rain coming down, so maybe that could be an advantage, right? Maybe the other drivers can avoid them because their cars are so visible, while some of these other guys don't really have that same visibility. A lot of black cars out there kind of going to be difficult to see in the wet, but you saw there the kegs of beer so far through 2 races, over 1 keg drank already. So these guys, continuing to put up massive alcoholic vibes with numbers in terms of the keg strength.
Well, we'll get the chance to take a rundown of what a lap looks like around the Snetterton circuit. We'll try to find somebody that's in some cleaners so you can actually see your way around this place. Let's ride on board with Carson Catlin, who will take us for a trip around the Snetterton 200 layout. This is a pretty rapid track, all things considered, despite the torrential downpour heading upwards of 120 miles an hour before he gets on the brakes with a sweeping double apex turn 1 of Riches. And then we immediately get straight to the tightest corner of the circuit, a 180-degree hairpin at Montreal, followed by a quick 90-degree flick to the left to the Bentley Straight.
And look how much he has to drive out wide in that corner, right? I mean, it looks like he got the corner wrong, but there was just so much standing water down there on the bottom towards the apex, towards the curbing. I mean, there's just about nowhere to go, no clear line through that last chicane that he just went through Montreal. So then, like you said, all the way down the Bentley Straight, coming up to Brundle and then Nelson. We're just going to have to wait and see. How is the water, right? You see him running over some standing water on the right side, down towards the curbing, even more standing water that you just kind of have to avoid. Not too bad through that corner, but here, having to go just ever so slightly wide, and honestly, having to slam on the binders ever so slightly to get that thing rotated through the exit of the corner. And coming down here, can't use the curb. Look at all that standing water all the way by the curb. If you hit that with the right side tires, you're going to be spinning out.
And of course, you saw we had just driven through the corner that this race is named after Bomb Hole. Now, I'm not sure the reasoning behind that name. If I had to, I'd keep in mind, I am not well versed in Snetterton lore. If I had to guess, though, I would recommend that a bomb went off there in the World War II era, which is why it's called Bomb Hole. The track does sink quite dramatically there, so that would be my best guess. The British have a tendency to be very up front with names like that. I mean, Hanger Strait to Silverstone. There's hangers along the strait. What more is there to say?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. It's not like we're naming astronomical bodies out here and we just got to throw a bunch of numbers and letters into it. It's a corner on a racetrack, and well, you know what? If there's a bomb that went off there right before you built the racetrack, I kind of like it. You know, very straightforward, to the point. We know exactly what happened to kind of get that corner its name. I feel like it's pretty strict and straightforward. You know, obviously Montreal probably modeled after. What's the Montreal circuit's name? Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. You know, it's just, I kind of like the easier corner names. Now, Murray's, I don't quite know what that would be. Maybe the track founders were a bunch of people with the last name Murray?
Famous Formula One commentator, if I'm not mistaken. Ooh. That's what Brundle is named after, Martin Brundle.
Well, that would make sense. That's fair enough. Yeah, see, still straightforward. I'm a big fan. But yeah, Bomb Hole makes sense. I can't wait to see if we have any issues through there. Like you said, it's a big divot coming down towards that corner. Really, you know, the ground just kind of sinks in towards the apex. So I think we could see some issues around that section of the racetrack as we come back through the last couple of corners into the start-finish line. We'll just have to wait and see throughout the night, though. And, you know, I say we're probably going to see a lot of issues at that corner. We're going to see a lot of issues at just about every single corner. The water is going to change. The water levels is going to get a little bit better through the heat race, and then a little bit worse through the main event, if not way worse, whenever the rain comes down even harder, way harder than it's coming down right now. This track is going to be absolutely covered. There's going to be almost no racetrack left to run on that's not covered by puddles.
One thing I'm very concerned about is the corner immediately after. You see that strip off to the right there? That's actually where the track is initially supposed to be going into the 300 layout. So this is just a 180-degree perfect pass opportunity to set yourself up for the infield section. But since we're bypassing that, it's a very quick duck back to the left. You can see it right here. There's the strip off to the right, but we cut in left. That's a very, very awkward sequence of corners to get through, and we could see some pretty major incidents there on lap number 1 in particular.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised, especially with the wet, right? You know, these guys have, honestly, as the seasons have gone by in the beer league, these guys have gotten better and better on the lap 1 issues, you know, keeping it relatively clean. But whenever it's raining like this, we've got a tight circuit with grass on both sides and puddles just kind of sneaking up out of nowhere. I got to think we're going to be back to the normal beer league shenanigans that we started out with a couple seasons ago whenever we started broadcasting. But we did get confirmation. Bomb Hole was not because of a bomb. It was because of something a little bit more explicit. So we're going to keep that out of your ears.
Well, allow me to attempt to, now that we've brought it up, let me attempt to say the story in a way that is broadcast friendly. So it does have a pronounced dip, yes. It is not the result of a World War II era bomb going off, though, as I would have imagined. Motorcycle riders, in particular, found it very difficult to master, understandably so. They described it as something. You can guess. You can guess what they're describing it as. However, and this is a direct quote, as this nickname was unsuitable for broadcast over circuit commentary, as I happen to agree, circuit owners modified it to the Bomb Hole, a tribute to its sudden undulation.
What'd that booty hole do?
Okay.
That's what it was called. Kind of close. Different word for booty. But, you know, yeah. I'm sorry, Nolan. I just love to just kind of push the edge ever so slightly with you.
You had one job.
It's kind of fun.
I was doing such a good job.
Look,
you didn't have to do that.
I like to completely ruin your night.
You're succeeding.
You're welcome.
Jeremy Castro not putting a lap down despite having 2 good final sectors. Tyler Carlton in 19th, crossed the start-finish line this time by, and the number 45 entry will improve up to the 16th place on the boards.
Still a lot of changes, and you know, whenever we've got a wet racetrack like this, it's very, very important to be out there as often as possible. Keep all 4 tires out on the racetrack. Get as many laps down, because you never know whenever the track's going to be at its best, right? And, well, given the fact that the rain's still coming down, even though it's not that hard, I would have to imagine the best racetrack that these guys had was at the very beginning of the session, but you just never know whenever you're going to hit the lap right, whether a specific corner that's very, very important dries out ever so slightly as some cars start running through the dry line or trying to make a dry line. You could very well find some grit that wasn't there beforehand. So it's just very important. Every single lap here, keep it on the tarmac, just see if you can make it any better every single lap. And you would think that that's kind of consistent over every qualifying session, but you know, a dry qualifying session, I kind of go with the first 2-3 laps, just sit down a banker, sit down on something decent that's going to start you in the top half of the field, and then just go for broke. If you get a couple off tracks and a couple laps just don't count towards the last 10 minutes of the qualifying, big whoop, who cares? Not that big of a deal because you're pushing for everything you got to get the best starting spot. Here at whenever it's just wet the entire time, like I said, every single lap could be your best lap, and ultimately could bump you all the way to the top of the board, just depending on how the track surfaces. So you got to kind of take these wet qualifyings a little bit differently than you do
here we go.
The dry ones.
Brooks Clayton, oh, so close, 14th to 2nd. I was just pointing out about how a lot of drivers are actually getting their fastest laps of the session, and we just saw as well Ron Wolf go from what was 12th to 7th, that's now bumped him down to 8th, but Clayton chasing Tucker's provisional pole time. I do want to point out right now, though, a lot of the lap times that we had to kick off this qualifying session here, we are right now still 10 seconds down on the practice times. The fastest practice times were in the 1:15s. And the track was virtually dry at the start.
I'm surprised it's not slower. I would have thought that we'd be more than 11 seconds off, but you know, and I suppose we do have 2 very, very long straightaways to where you're not really losing much time even in the wet. So maybe not too big of a surprise, but man, 11 seconds on a completely wet racetrack. It's not as bad as you would think.
Koffard to the line, green on all sectors, good enough for pole. He's going to best it by a 1/4 of a second from Austin Tucker. And Josh Freed, the next one to come across the line, he's green in all 3 sectors, and he'll go right up to 12.
So, you know, given the fact that we've gotten somebody go up to the top of the board, now Koffard's typically at the top of the board in qualifying, but nonetheless, he wouldn't be able to do that if the track was terrible. And we got Brooks Clayton, who's just recently gone up to the 3rd place position. I believe Darren Bailey just laid in a pretty good lap time. And we're seeing some people jump into the top 5, into the top 10. So obviously the track's got to be in a pretty good state right now compared to what it was at the beginning of qualifying. And looking at the radar like I am right now, this is the lightest rain that we've had since the beginning of qualifying.
Hold on. I want to address something. Antonio Alvarez's paint scheme could not have been more perfect. That is the Sea-Doo logo on the side.
He should easily win then. He's the only one in a jet ski. If he doesn't win the race, that's a problem.
Yeah, I would hope. That is so fitting for this race and the theme of the race in action here this afternoon. Blake Gambrill straight to 18th on his first qualifying lap.
Some of these guys are still continuing to lay down their fastest laps, and you can tell that, you know, the rain still looks like it's coming down relatively consistent, about the same as it has the entire qualifying, but it looks a little brighter, doesn't it? It feels like the fog is starting to go away. The clouds are starting to pass over the racetrack, and I just said, it's the lightest rain that we've had the entire qualifying session. It's about to go away completely in the next 5 minutes. Who can put down the last lap on the qualifying? That might be the guy that qualifies on pole.
I love the timing of you mentioning that, and that we immediately cut to a camera that shows that the rain is still very much pelting down despite letting up a little bit. There are a couple of breaks here and there, but the rain is going to come back. This track is not going to dry out by the end of the race. It is going to get wetter. I don't think we're going to see a single car switching over to the slick tires all night long.
The way that I'm looking at the weather radar just depends on how much time we're skipping in between sessions, right? How much time ends up skipping between quali to heat 1 and then heat 1 to the main event. Because we're having an in-sim time of 2 hours and 15 minutes that is 0% precipitation, and then right back to 100% after that. So it all depends on how much time we skip in between the sessions. If we run the entire heat race and there's no rain, which I believe it will be the case, they're gonna make a dry line through that, and then at the beginning of the main event, it could be completely dry. We might be starting on dries for the main event and then quickly going over to wets 15 to 30 minutes in.
Jason Lee was in 22nd. He'll go up to 18th. Still got some rapid lap times being put down as you see a few drivers kind of wash out wide onto the AstroTurf there on the outside of the final corner on the racetrack. The final turns, of course, being Coram and Murray's. Murray's an incredibly difficult left-hander. I've run this track a few times, not on iRacing, granted, on other sims, and I'll tell you what, I never managed to figure that corner out. It's something else, I'll tell you that much. Darren Bai goes to third.
I wish I had a little bit more of the road course experience so I could kind of lay into it myself and really give a more in-depth analysis of the racetrack, but I've never actually driven Snetterton across any service. The only reason I have it is because I broadcast. So I don't really know too much specifically about Snetterton, but you know, the beer league has really kind of brought the road racing back to the forefront of my mind and has at least got me thinking of it a little bit more, and it kind of helps me build these in-depth kind of analysis scenarios, even though I haven't put down the laps like I wish I would have. But you know, the in-depth analysis right now is rain is stopping. The fastest laps are about to start coming.
Jay Kasich attacking the top three. He puts himself up to third. But so far, nobody has come close to the 126.5 that we saw Koffard put down in this session. And we saw when these guys got out in front, they were able to just run away in the wet with it at Oldtown Park. I think once we get our big wet race ringers out in the front, they're just going to take off and they're going to be gone, leaving everyone to slip and slide behind them.
There's not a lick of rain coming down on this racetrack right now. I mean, maybe we got a little bit of, you know, just a little bit of sprinkles every now and again. But I'm looking at the weather radar. The rain is completely gone from the circuit in terms of the radar. So I got to think these fastest laps, the last 3 minutes of this are going to be the fastest laps. And if you're crossing the start-finish line right now, you've got 2 laps in you to the end of qualifying. So these are going to be the most important laps. Everything beforehand just basically becomes that banker lap that I was talking about in the dry. Whenever we typically have dry qualifying sessions. So these next 3 minutes are unbelievably important for the start of the heat race.
Kasich, green in the second sector, working his way around to the front straightaway out of Murray's. Right now in the spray of one of those cars up the road. Kasich crosses the line. Green again. Is it enough for pole? Waiting for the time to come down. It is not. Ran off track. Time got invalidated. Jason Lee improves to 16th. Here comes Chris Flams in 12th behind Ryan Murphy in 33rd. They're both green in the first 2 sectors. Flams comes across to the stripe. Yellow in the final sector, and he will go to 7th. Murphy will improve to 30th.
And all these guys are going to get one more lap in. And I'm telling you, I'm waiting to see who comes across this line with 1 minute and 30 seconds left, 1 minute and 26 seconds left. Exactly. I'm telling you, that could be the man that puts themselves on pole, the last one to the line with about 1 minute and 30 remaining. And I'm looking, I mean, John Combs just set the fastest Sector 3 of the entire night, bumps himself all the way up to P3, and Darren Bai says, oh, that was pretty good Sector 3, buddy.
Oh, there we go!
Sector 3 and the best lap of the night.
Darren Bai to the point by almost a quarter of a second ahead of Alex Koffard. Kyle Blevins had a great lap to kick off his run. Unfortunately, it will be down and out from there. Alex Koffard trying to steal pole back. It's the battle to see who will take pole position this afternoon. Does Koffard have it in him? He's got to reel in over 0.2 of a second if he wants to close in to 126.9. It is gonna be enough. He's into the 25s. It's a 125.89. Good 0.4 of a second. Finds Koffard back on pole.
Now, the only problem for Koffard, he cannot get another lap in. There's no chance he gets around one more time, and the track is continuing to dry, and people are starting to set better and better laps, at least personal best. Looking at Chris Flams coming across to the line here pretty soon. He's set 2 personal best sectors so far. Coming across the line, where is he going to move himself up to? Actually, his 3rd sector was terrible. Had a big moment, lost a ton of time. Can somebody else further back in these last 30 seconds with the driest track that we've had in the entire qualifying bump Koffard on the top spot?
Ronenberg, purple in the first, green in the 3rd. And no movement. Ronenberg went off the track. He won't get a time in. John Combs coming to the final corner. He's trying to get back to the point. Not going to do it as he's down to the 3rd sector as well. And what about Darren Bai? Purple in the final sector. Is that enough? No! He improves, but he's still out by 1/10.5.
Oh, good lap from Bai. What a great qualifying session. And man, if Kasich had some more time, he's got a purple 1st sector, a green 2nd sector, but he's just not going to have time to put down a a qualifying lap. That's going to be it for qualifying. And Koffard, the man that we all expected to be on pole, back on it again for the heat.
And well, with that, it's time to take a rundown of what your starting grid is going to look like for racing action here in the 15-minute sprint race coming at you from the Snetterton circuit. Started on pole position this afternoon. It is going to be none other than one Alex Koffard starting on the top alongside Darren Bai. Jake Kasich is third. Tucker is fourth. That is Blevins, Combs, Ronenberg, Clayton Flams, and Chris Bright. For the top 10, Aaron Thacker is 11th, Corey Barrett is in 12th, Ron Wolf in 13th, Scott Fleming in 14th, Josh Freed is in 15th, Alexander Hammonds in 16th, Lee, Dupuis, Hall, and Castro will round out the top 20. Continuing on down through the field from there, you got Blake Gambrill, Shane Cameron, Antonio Alvarez, Tyler Carlton, Kyle Smith, Greg Beckman, Carson Catlin, Ryan Verhulst, Ringo Harrison, and Alexander Bueller for the top 30. 37-car field headed up by Ryan Murphy, Jordan Babcock, Tanner Klein, Adam Joseph Ilhan, Brian Walsh making his first start in the beer league, Giovanni Romano, and Tyler Augustino.
And we haven't jumped too far ahead in terms of the session, like how much time we've jumped ahead. We're only to 2:16 p.m. The rain comes back at 4:45. So these guys might be able to dry out the track during the heat race and get a good bit of the main event done in the dry.
And we'll wait to see. Still waiting on the last few cars to grid on up. Koffard has a big tendency to kind of just rip away with these races, doesn't he? Especially in the sprint. Do you reckon we're going to be seeing something similar this afternoon?
I mean, I would say yes, especially with the track conditions. I think it kind of lends into Koffard's hands with them being ever-changing. Now, I just don't know if certain guys are going to be on the wets. Some guys are going to be on the dries. Like, is this track going to dry out enough through this heat race to where the dries are so much better than the wets for the last 5-10 minutes of it, to where you can make up a lot of ground? We're going to have to wait and see who's on which tires and who makes the best out of it.
The Rams are going to build. And the lights flick on. Lights are out. We're racing for the sprint race for Koffard's Wet Bomb Hole Grand Prix. Firing down towards turn number 1, and so far looking strong all throughout. Koffard maintaining a strong drive. He's clear into turn number 1.
Yeah, Koffard easily getting out to the lead. Kasich and Darren Bai side by side for the second place spot. Bai with the outside line, able to get a little bit better run. The spray really catching some people out further out. I think I saw one spinner coming out of turn number 1, but then down into turn 2. Down into turn Montreal, yeah, just one spinner all the way towards the back. It looks like everybody getting, one car sent it in really deep. Down into the first chicane here. Turns 2 and 3. Maybe a little bit more contact as Ron Wolf tries to get back on the racetrack. But honestly, a little bit cleaner than I would have expected for how much rain we got out there.
One car going around. That is Alexander Hammonds that finds himself facing the wrong way. Meanwhile, Koffard pulling clear at the very head of this field as he makes his way through the famed corner itself. And we'll set ourselves up for the final sector of the lap. But Blake Gambrill just torpedoed the field coming down to turn 2.
Yeah, just missing the braking point ever so slightly. And, you know, like I said, some people, is that Ronenberg getting turned? The 017 going up the racetrack, dropping tons of positions. Him and Chris Flams just dropping outside the top 20, way out of the racing groove. As we see the one car going spinning out of turn number 1, and then coming down here into turn 2, just way late on the brakes. I mean, everybody else taking it easy. That was definitely not taking it easy right there.
And that was Ron Wolf that ended up getting into that. You got a lot of cars that are bottled up here, looking for 3 wide. One car sideways in the back, and they're still collecting each other at the tail of the field. They're both going to go flying off the racetrack and into the weeds. While the rest of the pack slices and dices down the pit straight back into turn number 1. Lap 1 in the books, and so is the first lap of official racing with the beer league at Snetterton.
Scott Fleming got into the back of Josh Freed there. I thought for sure Freed was going to be free falling out of the top 10, out of the top 20, getting sent off the racetrack. But man, he did a great job hanging on to that after the 37 got into the back of him. And it's just crazy how slow they have to take this set of corners right here. Turns 2 and 3. The Montreal, I honestly call it a chicane with that left-hander at the end of it. I mean, they're just crawling through there. There is absolutely no grip through that set of corners. But, you know, the guys up in the front that are kind of, you know, they have the clean air. They're not finding it quite as difficult, but Darren Bai, as soon as I say that, from the top 5, spins out.
Stand by, goes off the road. Ryan Murphy and Carson Catlin have come together. By still struggling to get himself back on. He was in the top 5. Now he's going to drop outside of the top 20 as a result. He's not the only one off the road. Is Adam Joseph Mailhot, one of the Schnitzen Giggle cars, having a moment. And Koffard finds himself under fire by Jake Casey. But look at that standing water and how both of those top 2 got unsettled as they came off of the final corner to the front straightaway.
Yeah, out of Murray's, it seems like there's a lot of standing water towards the pit entrance, and these guys are trying to get on the throttle to get as good of a run down the straightaway as possible, and it's just about impossible to actually get the throttle down. And then coming down into turn number 1, a lot of standing water in the typical braking line, so they're kind of having to shallow up their entry and be even more careful down into turn number 1 than I would imagine they even want to be. You know, you think, yeah, I got to slow down a little bit, but man, I got to have at least a little bit of speed still in this thing, and it just takes so much discipline to be able to back yourself down enough to not create a big incident as these two going side by side down the Bentley straightaway, finally getting it sorted out.
Struggling for visibility as he ride on board with Kyle Blevins as he's going to look to the outside of John Combs just up the road. And no overtake attempt this time around, but they do kind of concertina up a little bit at the apex there. So underneath the bridge, as several folks in this field they're doing their best. And I mean, credit to them. They're having a pretty clean race, all things considered. This is one of those racetracks, though. It can be very, very difficult to get passes done. You can definitely tell a lot of these guys are fighting with it at the moment.
Like you said, difficult to get the passes done. Oh, this is tight, but everybody's stuck in the middle. Somehow they get it sorted out before they get down to the corner. Like you said, difficult to get passes done, but you get people running off the racetrack like that whenever the rain's out here. So you just have to put the pressure on, right? You got to keep it close enough to the guy in front of you where they feel the pressure. They feel like they have to drive ever so slightly harder than they need to, as we got another car going around out of the last corner. I think that's Jason Lee tumbling outside of the top 20. It's just all about putting them under pressure. Make them make a mistake before you do, and keep that clean air for yourself.
You know how I think this race is going to go? You know what? I'll actually save that for our between race thoughts here as we fight our way through. 10 minutes to go, though. We're a third of the way through the sprint race this afternoon, averaging about 124 to 127 lap times. Alex Koffard did just put down the fastest lap of the race with a 124.86, so not a bad run for him at all. And now side by side through turns 2 and 3, with the highlighter cars going at it.
Yeah, and that 128.6, or sorry, 124.8, I should say, that's a whole second faster than what we saw in qualifying, as we see another car spinning back towards the back, coming out of Montreal before they could get to the Bentley straight. But that's a whole second faster than his qualifying lap for Alex Koffard. And I think a lot of these other guys are starting to find some more of the confidence. The problem is you start finding a little bit more grip, and you think you have a lot more grip, and you just drive it ever so slightly too hard. I think that might have just happened to Josh Freed there, who we just saw was backwards.
And it happened as well to Austin Tucker, who found himself backwards, and now he finds himself well outside of the top 12, trying to fight his way back into the top 12 invert for the main event, coming on up in about 15 minutes' time. Once you take the warm-up into account. Oh, a couple of cars with damage behind. That was Chris Flams having a problem back here. Might have gotten into it with Alexander Bueller. For all, though, a few one-car incidents, but we haven't seen the big melee that I was expecting to come out of a new track and an extremely wet track with volatile conditions as well.
Yeah, not as much mayhem. It's like a lot of single-car or two-car little issues, right? It's nothing that's big problem that causes one of these big battle packs to have issues. It's just a little bit of bumper cars that we've been seeing so far. We see Austin Tucker playing a bit of it right now too. He was up in third before that spin, so honestly, a big detriment for Austin Tucker, but it could turn into a big net positive for the main event. If he could just pick up 2 more spots, then he'll flip over to the front. We got a couple of highlighter cars around, and John Combs off the racetrack.
The two that we saw around was Tanner Clyde and Eric Ronenberg. Now, they're not close enough to each other to have reasonably had car-to-car contact cause this. I'm willing to bet Clyde has lost it. And Ronenberg, well, monkey see, monkey do. Oh, and wow, that's not pleasant.
And a T-bone on the side.
Usually the stakes are the main course, not the side course.
Yeah, well, I was literally just about to say, man, if I had a T-bone as my side, that would be fantastic. My main course must have been lit.
It's just Little Caesars pizza, as it turns out.
I think that would have been the side then if I had
Oh, look at this.
Ooh, 3 wide through the last corner. Somehow these guys making it work. But man, they just have out had to stop on a dime. Oh, Giovanni Romano getting turned down the front straightaway. Oh my goodness, Romano with absolutely nothing that he could have done out of that one. Coming back towards the line, he just got dumped.
That was Antonio Alvarez, by the way, that made a big overtake there, and it was a good overtake as well. I mean, he saw an open door, credit to him, and he sent it. He made it work. He recognized when there was an opportunity, and he decided, nope, I'm not going to think twice about this one. We're over halfway home in the 15-minute sprint. For those that are just tuning in, it might be unaware of the event format for this afternoon. We have a 15-minute sprint. Top 12 will receive points, and they will also be inverted for a 1-hour main event. And we can have the possibility of 2 code 60s. That comes up after a little bit of a warm-up period. Aaron Thacker now around, last week's winner with problems, and he's not the only one. We got another one that just went off into the barriers.
A lot of people having issues coming up to those corners. Jeremy Castro way off the racetrack as well, dropping throughout the corner. He's going to be outside the top 12. It seems like that might be the problem corner.
So do you want to know what exactly is causing that corner? And I know this because I've driven this exact track in another sim in drenched conditions. You know what it is?
Big puddle on the apex.
Not only that, it extends about halfway into the racing groove, even on a wet racing groove. That whole corner is on a camber. It's not a big camber, but you feel it when you're in the car. And that water pools on the curbing, and that it's one of those corners you can't afford to take it super wide because you have to take that one tight and hold it to the inside to set yourself up for that tighter 90-degree right-hander immediately after it. So you got to just kind of take the risk.
You just basically have to hope that you're braking at the right point for it. Whoa, the jet ski way off the racetrack. Buddy, these are the conditions that you need way off the racetrack for Antonio Alvarez.
To be fair, he is driving how a typical jet ski driver does.
That's a very, very fair point. Those guys are crazy.
that was mean. I'm sorry. That was unnecessarily mean.
I mean, it's accurate. Those guys, they don't have fear, right? There's jet ski riders do well. That's
to be fair, Alvarez has respect. That's something that normal jet ski riders tend not to have.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I couldn't tell you how many times I've been wakeboarding and I've had a jet ski jump maybe 10 feet behind me across my wake. I've definitely flicked a couple birds in my day wakeboarding at those people. No,
Tyler Carlton, go contact with Shane Cameron. They both go a little hot, but no problems.
Josh Reed, Matthew Dupuis fighting. But these guys, I believe, running 10th and 11th side by side for the position. And man, look at Dupuis just taking that inside line, taking it from Josh Reed, like taking candy from a baby. I mean, simple overtake. And we got 3 guys off the racetrack again down in Nelson.
Alex Koffard finds himself off the road, but I don't know if that was voluntary or not. He saw the end of what happened to Lee. And then this is Koffard. Was this tech problems? Or was this just Koffard doing all of a sudden went straight. It's
And then he just disappeared.
I think he's trying to see how far into the trees he could go, and it's not very far, as it turns out.
I was about to say, they just reset you to the pits after you run 30 feet off the racetrack? That's a little harsh.
To be fair, if you're going that far off the racetrack that quickly, you're either in a high-speed Formula 1 car, or you've done something that warrants you being reset back to the pits.
You could just get spun out and get stuck going backwards and not being able to get on the brakes in time, and that just seems a little harsh to be putting you back in pit road rather than letting you drive it back on the racetrack at that point. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gets bit by that in the main event, especially whenever the rain starts coming down again.
A few more cars off the road. Augustino, Mail Hot, and Flams all going off the wrong direction this time. To be fair, Summer Point does the same thing. And it's almost never a problem. Really? Yeah.
I've never seen that at Summit Point.
Exactly, because usually you're not trying to go off the road.
Well, that's a fair point. Another replay.
That's the point. Like, it might be a bit harsh, but you don't really get out there unless you're trying to. Because if you're holding the brakes with the updated grass physics, you shouldn't really have a problem.
I mean, there's a very defined drier line through Brundle and Nelson there, but man, like you were mentioning earlier, there's puddles on both sides. If you miss that dry line ever so slightly, or if you go through there too wide, at least one of the guys that are going too wide are getting 2 wheels off into the wet, off into the puddles that are standing on the sides of the racetrack. I mean, Nelson and Brundle look to be the most difficult corners on the track during these type of conditions.
Right now, Austin Tucker maintains the final invert spot. Giovanni Romano has just gone off the track, similar to Koffard, maybe trying to test the waters a little bit. Jake Kasich pulling a 3-second gap with 2 minutes to go.
The most consistent person I've ever seen in my life. Oh, well, here's Ron. Okay, well, I was literally jinxing it as I was saying it. I was about to say Ron Wolf is the most consistent person I've ever seen because he was getting ready to finish this heat race in 11th. He finished the first one in 12th, the second one 13th. I literally jinxed him because Austin Tucker said, no, buddy, you're not finishing in 11th. You're coming way back here with me.
Wolf back to 15th place now, and he's off the road again. What have you done to this man?
Dude, that was a powerful jinx. Holy cow. I just
you know you're getting the blame for that.
I mean, I probably deserve it, to be fair. I was trying to jinx somebody last night in the lead race. I picked him in the pre-race knowing that he gets jinxed every single time. Even towards the end, he had a 10-second lead, and I was like, oh, something's going to happen. Caution's going to come out, and it never did. So I think that maybe all the jinx power got saved for tonight.
That's,
It's not good.
That's a pay cut right there.
Woo! I don't think Ron's paying my paycheck, so as long as I don't jinx the lead gunner, we should be all right.
1 minute. Well, I pay her paycheck.
Well, yeah, but why would you cut my pay? I'm not jinxing you.
Yet. If OBS crashes, I'm blaming you now.
Well, I didn't say that. You did.
Hey, you're the one that does the jinx. It doesn't matter how it comes out. A jinx is a jinx.
No. If it comes out of your mouth, that's a you jinx.
Oh, now we're shifting the goalposts. I see how it is.
You're the one you're gaslighting the hell out of me right now.
Off the road, Chris Bright is around. This could be detrimental. We got 30 seconds left. We have started the final lap of the sprint race here. Bright's got to get back on track quickly here. The good news is this puts him further up the field in the invert now.
Yeah, I was about to say, you said while he was spinning out, like, this could be bad. And you know what it is. He gets a couple less points in the heat race.
It's bad if he drops back to 13th.
Yeah, for sure. But, and I like what you're saying, right? You're still right. You get less points in the heat race for falling back like you did, but he only fell back to 7th, so ultimately that's pretty good for the main event. He'll still be starting in about 6 if he can hang on to that one, hang on to that position. Honestly, if I was in the beer league, I'd probably tank to 12th on purpose.
Holy cow, look at this. Jake Kasich is already catching lap traffic in the sprint. When have we seen that before?
I mean, Ferris is a pretty short track. If we were under green flag conditions, it would be taking us 75 seconds to get around here. We've seen a lot of people go off because of the rain, so I'm not super surprised because of how many issues we've seen in the early going for a lot of these guys through the puddles, but nonetheless, Kasich's put on a great race. It's not like he let Koffard get too far out in front of him in the early going of the heat race before Koffard went straight off in turn 1. Kasich's been there the entire time, and he's going to be coming around the last couple corners to win this thing.
Kasich comes around through Murray's, and with that, it'll be Jake Kasich taking home the dub in the sprint race. He will start 12th but get max points as we gear up for the main event here, coming on up in about 5 minutes time.
Blevins coming across in second. John Combs in third.
Oh, you can't even get to the... Oh,
see,
tell me.
That's too much, Nolan. That's too much.
Oh, no. You can get there. No, you can get there.
Okay, never mind. It's not too much. That's great.
It's just finicky, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple of these guys like to blink out. Thacker, that's not how we do it. We don't break before we hit the ball.
Oh!
That's how you do it. Holy cow!
Barrett aimed for him.
That was amazing. Whoever that was, Shane Cameron coming in.
Oh, this is the perfect angle.
This is a great corner.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, he's flipping Austin Tucker. He's dead.
There's by.
Now he's really dead.
And here comes Agostino. No, I think we can call that a clear the fence line. And there was Alvarez. Alvarez getting to the beer league spirit after his second race here. Here comes Catlin. There's Hammonds, Verhulst, and more.
I'll be honest. That is a really, really short runoff for real life. Like, if these guys actually, lost their brakes coming down into turn 1 in real life, that would be sketchy.
Well, to be fair, they have a big, wide, sweeping corner. So if you hit that wall, you don't have to lose brakes and steering, which was a very impressive feat.
Or lose both of your front tires like Mark Webber in Russia that 1 year.
Or I don't think that was Russia. I think that was China.
Was it China?
We're talking 2010, right? Shanghai, end of the straight, into the hairpin.
Okay, it might have been Shanghai. I wasn't an F1 fan.
I don't even think it was Webber.
Was it not? I know it was a Red Bull.
It may have been a Toro Rosso at the time. I think it was a Toro Rosso.
I might need to refresh my F1 history.
It was Sebastian Buemi. Yep, Toro Rosso, 2010 Chinese Grand Prix.
Yeah, I definitely don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a NASCAR guy, everybody. I'm a NASCAR guy.
You're just shooting out famous names. It's like, yeah, this sounds accurate.
Look, I see a Red Bull, and I think, pre-Sebastian Vettel, and I think, oh, that's Mark Webber. But
you're not wrong. I mean, Webber was around
before 2017. I don't really know about F1, so don't judge me too hard.
I'm not going to judge you too hard.
Thanks, buddy.
I can't say the same about our audience, but I won't judge you too hard. Anyways,
well, if the audience judged me, they can. Well, never mind. I like my audience. Stay, buddies. You can judge me all you want.
Well, here we go. These are the results for the sprint race, and we'll go through we'll go through the starting grid right now as well for the main event coming on up here. Jeremy Castor will start this race from pole with Carlton in second, Cameron third, Freed fourth, Barrett fifth, Chris Bright is sixth, Thacker seventh, Fleming eighth, Quentin Combs, Blevins, and Kasich will round out 9th through 12th. And moving on down to start things off for the main event, it'll be Alexander Bueller, Eric Ronneberg, Justin Hall, Ron Wolf, Austin Tunker, Chris Flams, Darren Bai, and Matthew Dupuis. We move down to the bottom half of the field, where Augustino, Alvarez, Catlin, Hammonds, Verhulst, Lee, Klein, Babcock, Beckman, and Smith will bring up the top 30. And then closing out the field, and this again will be the starting grid. We won't go over it again, so pay attention. It'll be Adam Joseph Mailhot, Ringo Harrison, Brian Walsh, Ryan Murphy, Giovanni Rano, Alex Koffard, and Blake Gambrill to start things off for the main event this afternoon. So here's my take on this. If the rain starts to come down again, I think we're going to get into the exact same type of rhythm that we saw at Oulton Park. You're not going to be making passing unless somebody goes off the track.
I think that's probably a fair assessment, but if it's coming down as hard as it was at the end of practice, people are going to be going off the track pretty consistently. And I got to point out, in between heat race, not number one, just in between the heat race and the 5-minute warm-up we have right now, we jumped an entire hour into the future, which is way more than what we jumped from qualifying to the heat race. So after the warm-up, at minimum, we're going to be at 4:30, which would be 10 minutes away from 100% chance of precipitation, and it's 100% chance the entire way through to the end of the race. So it's gonna be super wet.
Yeah, right now, looking on the forecast entering today, it was anticipated that the main event was going to have half of its race run in the right conditions. I do see some people out practicing on dry tires, though, so you could very well get the dry tires coming into play a little bit more over the course of the next little while. So, at least early on, who knows? We could be seeing dry tires being a serious factor for drivers to be concerned about. But we'll get to all of that in just a moment. For now, we've got your opening ceremonies to get through, so we shall throw things on down, and, we'll listen in to the UK National Anthem. And when we return, it's going to be back for more racing action on Green Flag TV. So checker flag falls on the 5-minute warm-up session, and as everything lines on up, Austin, it's going to be a great show this afternoon. We know what we're in for. We've gone through the starting grid. We know everything there is to know about what racing action looks like this afternoon. 2 minutes to figure out who's going to be on top. Koffard, of course, taking his usual exit. Does he make the last to first challenge? I don't think he does. He hasn't been convincing with that this season yet.
Yeah, but he's going to have ever-changing conditions today. I feel like today might be the most possible for it to happen. Now, the problem is, how good are some of these other guys in the wet? We saw Kasich was not slow. He was not letting Koffard get away in the early going. Now, obviously, he's going to be starting back in 12th here and could get caught up in some of the mayhem, but there's going to be a couple of really good drivers in the wet that kind of have Koffard's advantage mitigated because of the wet track. I don't think Koffard's going to be so far better than a lot of these guys because of the wet track. So I don't know. It's just dependent on who actually wrecks out whenever the rain comes down. I feel like if guys like Kasich and some of our other top 5 finishers from the heat race stay alive, then I don't think Koffard has a chance. But if guys like Kasich, Blevins, Combs, Clayton all drive off the racetrack, man, it could be Koffard's night. But we're gonna have about 15 minutes without rain anyway.
Crucially, a good chunk of this field starting on dry tires. The top 2 are on dries. 4th place is on dries. 6th place down to 9th are all on slick tires. So is 11th through 13th. 18th place is on dry tires. It's about a 50-50 call between dry tires and wet tires, and a lot of the wet tire guys, they're starting further down the field. They're planning for the long game.
I'm shocked that there are so many people on the wet tire. I am looking at the track map right now. I mean, I see the rain on the radar. It's 10 to 15 minutes away. So I get that they're probably trying to cut out a pit stop, but man, I'd be starting on the dries.
Could be trying to make it a one-stop. Yeah, I mean, if you come down and you have to change tires again, you're all of a sudden taking what could have been about, a 20-second pit stop and making it into a 50-second pit stop. That could be critical on a track where the times are only a minute and a half. But the lights are going to flick on. And it's go! It's Snetterton for the first main event!
Very neutral flying now towards turn number 1. Carlton got to get away from second. Like you mentioned, a lot of these guys on dry tires, but there's still slick spots on the racetrack. We see some standing water, even though most of it's gone. If you're on the dries, you absolutely cannot hit those puddles. We see one car off the racetrack already through the first little straightaway section after turn number 1, but coming down into Montreal, looks like everybody able to get it double wide minimum coming through here, and everybody's going to get through relatively clean through the top 10, top 20. It looks like our whole field is going to make it through the first couple corners A-okay.
Jordan Babcock having a bit of a slow up in the middle of the field there. There up front, you can see Castro, Carlton trying to go defensive here. A huge defensive move there from the 24 to cover off the 45 entry. As we make our way back down into the second sector, a bit in hot there for Castro and Carlton. Behind, still no issues through this opening salvo. Romano hops up and over the curbing, but you're allowed to do that here so long as you don't monster truck it into one of your opponents. Here comes Castro now through the final couple of corners, and if he can nail this corner here, it will be Jeremy Castro, your leader at the end of lap number 1.
There's not too many puddles out on the racetrack that these guys are worried about. It's just very specific scenarios. We saw coming down into Brundle and Nelson, there was just some wetter areas of the track. Not puddles, but definitely wetter areas. And you can see on the outside, they're not able to use the very outside to kind of widen out their turn 1. Because there's just too much water still standing on the outside of the racetrack. You still see some of these rooster tails coming off the back end of these cars. So the grip's not going to be perfect. And we see our second place driver, Tyler Carlton, off into the barriers out of turn 1.
Hard hit into the wall for Carlton and the highlighter number 45 as he finds himself on the outside looking in. This is what happened. Just caught that standing water on the curves and nails the Armco.
Well, and the bigger problem, I don't even know if it was standing water or the fact that the paint's still wet, right? You get your outside tires through a corner. Obviously it changes each corner. You got a right-hander. It's the left side tires, your outside. You get those left side tires onto the paint, and all of a sudden the grip is completely gone. When it's dry, the paint has more grip. But here you see multiple cars off the racetrack through Brundle and Nelson. Everybody missing the corner.
What is going on here? We got a whole pack of them all bottled up. And that is a huge number of cars off the track. I counted about 5, at least on my event recorder, that all went off there at the same time. And, well, we'll find out why.
Stay off the paint, boys. Stay off the paint. That's all I can say. I don't even know if it was the paint that caused this, but, you know, it's just a tough scenario, and we saw that this was a tough corner. Well, that was definitely not paint.
Nope,
Just one guy driving
not.
in a little bit too deep, tapping the back end of Carlton, and Carlton couldn't get it slowed down after he got a little hip check from behind.
And it just all kind of bottles up here in the middle of that. And, geez, I mean, that talk about going to hell in the handbasket. There's Jake Kasich, already up 7 positions in less than 3 laps. He is now up and into 4th.
Yeah, Kasich doing a great job, but also somebody else up towards the front of the field. Josh Freed has got your race leader. He's going side by side with your pole sitter of Jeremy Castro down in the Brundle and Nelson. Not the place that you want to be side by side after what we saw last lap, but man, Freed is looking feisty.
Josh Freed trying to get the elbows out. Aaron Thacker going off the road as he's going to slip a little bit further down for the Hot Wheels number 816. While the 24 and the 3 continue to duke it out, nose to tail. Castro, a little twitch on the brakes there as he gets into some of that water. Now Josh Freed pressuring the back end, pulling over to the left-hand side, trying to make the move down the pit straight. They're side by side for the lead at the Snetterton circuit.
You got to be careful here if you're Freed. You don't want to be pushed too far out wide into those wet spots on the outside. Looks like he's going to be able to keep it on the racetrack. Castro drives it in.
Nice!
Looks like Freed's going for the over-under. Castro off the racetrack. Just Freed to the race lead.
Perfect racecraft there. Baited Castro into going wide. Oh, big pile up in the final corner.
What in the world is going on? This is like the second 4 or 5 car pileup that we've seen in the main event so far. I got to think that the mixture of dry to wet tires and just the differing grip levels through the entire racetrack are just catching a lot of these guys out. We're looking, just way too deep there for the 63. Trying to get in there, trying to take a spot, but ultimately just getting into the left rear there, coming into the last corner. Not really much room for Giovanni Romano to squeeze through those guys.
And again, we find one car off the road. This time it's Kasich that makes the exact same mistake that Thacker did. Goes in a little bit too deep. He's able to drive it back. And then meanwhile, Cameron, Clayton, Bueller, 9th through 11th. And one of the only 2 Schnitzinger cars into the top 10 right now. The other one being Corey Barrett, way up and into 5th. But the classic club clique is trying to run him down for spots further inside the top 10.
A lot of racing, hard racing inside the top 10, and I gotta point out, you know, you're saying maybe it's smarter to stay on the wet tires because you don't have to change tires whenever the rain comes again. Oh, Chris Bright way off the racetrack from 6. He's gonna lose a good couple of spots as he gets back on to the racing surface. But the rain's about 6 minutes away, and it's gonna be pretty daggum heavy. There's a lot of yellow on the radar right now in this first wave of storms that we're gonna have at the very beginning of this thing. So the guys on wet tires that, you know, have given up a good chunk of ground in the early going, they might actually be on the front foot, right? I said I would have rather had the dry tires. You were talking about the wets. I think you might be right.
I think it's really going to depend on where that changeover period comes, right? At what point does it become faster to go and be on wet tires than it is to just stay out on dries on a greasy racetrack? That's a constant balancing act that has to be monitored, and that changes, right? That's not a finite thing. That can change, not just depending on how heavy it's raining, but where on the track it's raining. You can handle a lot of heavy rain in the slower corner, not so much in the high-speed stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You go through a high-speed corner and you hit a puddle, good luck. Your front end is either going to go completely straight through the rest of the corner, or the back end's going to step out right then, right there, and completely wreck yourself around everybody else. Right now we got a side-by-side battle coming out of the last corner. So it looks like we've got our first pit stop. I'm going to tell you right now, this is too early to put on the wets. We don't have any rain yet. I don't know why you'd be pitting 8 minutes.
Whoa, we got one car to the wall of the pit straight there. That, I think, was Greg Beckman. No, sorry, that was Justin Hall that just caught the wall in the middle of the pit straight.
Hammonds getting past. Is that Koffard going by? You were talking about it's going to be tough for Koffard to get through the field. I can guarantee you he's on dry tires. He's all the way up to 12th place already. Alex Koffard making short work of the field.
And this is with Hall. Very curious about what happened here to put him into the fence. Following, and I don't know what to make of that. I'm going to be honest.
I think he fell asleep.
He made me attempt a momentary screen freeze as well.
Yeah, my dad, back whenever he was a teenager, he's got a story he used to tell that, he fell asleep at the wheel and it just drifted over slowly, and then he just did a bunch of barrel rolls and broke his nose. That looked kind of similar, just without the barrel rolls.
Ah, hello, Jeremy Castro, now at a pit road as well.
What? Why are we coming down already? He's on dries.
Yes.
So he's got to be changing to wets, right? There's no chance he'd be pitting here unless he was changing to wets, but it's too early. It's too early to be changing to wets.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe he's not gaining as much time as he thought he would. Maybe he's trying to go for an undercut, an extreme undercut on the wet weather drivers. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the strategy they're going for.
I feel like we're still, I would say, 4, 5, even 6 laps away from the changeover point, though. He's going to be slower than the guys on dry tires if he's putting on the wets right now. I'm just really confused by these early pit stops, unless maybe the drivers are seeing something different than what we're seeing. I know sometimes there's some spectator bugs, so maybe the rain's already here for them and we're not privy to the information, but I don't think so. These guys are still running decent lap times. Well, a couple guys off the racetrack in turn 1, maybe pointing towards that.
I mean, we've been talking about the Rooster Tails, right? And how, I mean, they've still been kicking up in some points of the racetrack, and everything has that debris thing now. Maybe some of these guys with the wet weather tires have been attacking some of those standing water polymers, dragging the water all over the racetrack and turning the dry line into too greasy of a line for some to want to risk staying out on dries.
Josh Freed is on dry tires, correct?
Yes. Right now, everybody inside the top 11, all the way back to 12th, are on dries. 13th is the first car on wets, and that is John Combs.
And our race leader of Josh Freed, like you said, on dry tires, he's running 118s, 119s, which is way faster than what we qualified with, right? We qualified in the 126s. So these guys running 7, 8 seconds faster than we did at that point with the dry tires. I guarantee the wet tires aren't driving or aren't racing at that speed right now, and we're still 3 minutes away from the first drop of rain. So I'm miffed as to why guys are coming down, putting on wet tires already. Is that the 79 way off the racetrack, kind of beaching himself up a viewing party spot?
I think he's content to just call it a night. He's been sitting there for a good while now, and he has just taken the tow back to pit road. So Blake Gambrill, whoa, Beckman, where are you going, sunshine?
Probably where the rest of the sunshine is going, behind the clouds.
Or under a bridge.
It is disappearing right now.
Wow.
The sun is gone. The clouds are coming out. The rain's about to come. And that was just way wide.
And then look at Alexander. Oh, Hammonds! Oh, boy. So what Hammonds was trying to do there, he was trying to get into that standing water there so he could get the tires cooled down. Because that's the problem with running wet tires on a slick track, right? You overheat those tires and you will cook them, you'll shred them, and they're not going to help you a whole lot when the rain does come around. So what he was trying to do there, he's trying to find some standing water to run through so he can help cool his tires down. The problem is, you can't do that when you've only got 2 tires in the wet stuff. Especially in a braking zone of a high-speed corner like that.
Yeah, completely offline, 2 tires on it, right next to the grass, and if you clip the grass while it's wet, it's even worse as well. Just kind of a bunch of bad variables kind of all coming together there, spinning them out for Hammonds. Definitely.
Look at all that water on the left side that he's trying to hit here.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big puddle, just a long puddle, but you can tell he just aquaplaned at some point.
The second he hit the brakes. The second he hit the brakes, that car went around on him.
I like the idea, but you can't hit the brakes in the water. You can't hit the brake. Even whenever we were talking about with the wets in qualifying, you got to find a drier spot to brake.
So that strategy, it again falls back to the point, you have to do that with all 4 tires. You cannot do that with just 2, because then you get what we saw right there. I'm willing to bet that would have happened even if he got it back out onto the racetrack before he hit the braking zone.
Very well could have. I mean, it's just, it's especially hitting the brakes with 2 in the water and 2 in the dry, because you've got so much different levels of grip between the 2 sides of the car. And, you know, if you're just driving in a straight line, you could probably maybe get away with that, especially since he's got the wet tires. But as soon as you hit the brake pedal, good luck. There's about no chance. The left sides just have way less gripping power, and the right side is saying, I'm going to slow down way faster than the left side can slow down, and, well, that's why you spin out.
Almost a quarter of the way through this race, and the raindrops are falling. The rain has arrived at least at one end of the circuit. It's arrived at the turn 1 and 2 end, and it's going to slowly make its way across the rest of the racetrack.
Hey, you say slowly, I say pretty daggum quick, because the winds are blowing fast.
Oh, yeah,
We're
it
talking
just
about
arrived
18.
at the other end, too, now.
Yeah, 18-mile-an-hour winds. This storm front is coming through crazy quick. I mean, flying through here. Watching the radar, I don't know if I've seen rain move this quick. I still don't think we're at the changeover point, but we're pretty daggum close to where I'm okay with the pit road, or coming down pits to get the wet tires like Corey Barrett's doing now.
Staying out was Flams and Koffard. Koffard's a driver that kind of knows how to game these strategies, so I'm watching to see what he's going to do and figure it out from there. Augustino is in this time by, and Corey Barrett still sitting in pit road. It's a long time to get tires changed over. I haven't really seen tire changes in these cars ever throughout the season, so I'm very curious to see how long this is going to take. Barrett's still sitting, going on 30 seconds and more.
So yeah, that's a big disadvantage. Obviously, having the dries at the beginning let these guys get away from the wet tires a good ways, but you know, like you were saying in the pre-race, just the long pit stop. How long you have to sit down there, down in the pit lane. I mean, it's just so detrimental for you. I don't know if you're going to be able to make it up, because all these guys that are pitting right now, I gotta think are going to have one more pit stop, and well, all the guys that started on the wet tires also going to have one pit stop, but they're not going to have to change tires because it's going to be raining the rest of the time. So we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe they can stretch the fuel since the pace will be slower, but we'll have to wait and see.
So I have something else about why it could be beneficial for these guys to pit now, as we see a huge chunk of guys now coming in. Remember, the wet tires are the guys that started the wet tires. They're not going to come into play immediately. Those tires are cooked. They have been running them for 15 minutes in the dry. They are way overheated now. They're going to have to take at least 5-10 minutes or so to get them cooled back down to peak optimal temperatures. And on top of that, they're shredded. They've been shredding those tires by just running them on a dry-ish racetrack like this. That's not going to be beneficial for them, so they're going to be down on pace as well. Their benefit here is they're going to have a massive jump, because these guys have to spend 40 seconds in the pits getting their times fixed, but now these guys are on the upper hand with the tire strategy for the rest of the race from here on to the end.
Yeah, they're going to have much newer, much better tires, like you said. Riding in the dry is definitely going to be hurting those wet tires. Their percentages are going to be way lower at the end of this race than the guys that are coming down pit road now. But man, it's just the time that you have to sit in pit lane for this pit stop is unbelievable. And if you got to come back down one more time to get more fuel, then I really like the wet tire strategy. If these guys can stretch it all the way from here, oh, Hammond's off the racetrack again. But if these guys can stretch it from here because of the because of the rain coming down and the slower lap times, then, you know, I'll like it. But here it is, Hammond's going off the racetrack, and Combs found his way over here too.
Just kind of did the same thing, speared off the road, albeit he kept it out of the wall. Top 5 have yet to come down. 4 of the top 5 are in. Carlton is the one car we are really waiting on, and, well, I think with that line, he's coming in this time by, but you really cannot stay out any longer. Well, he's going to try. We'll see how that goes for him.
Well, he called your bluff really quick. That was...
He sure did.
I would have definitely come down pit road if I had the dry tires at this point. I mean, the rain's coming down good, man. People are sliding off the racetrack left and right. I'm looking at Kasich's last lap time. Kasich's last lap time on dries was a 1:23.4, which is only 2 or 3 seconds better than what we were seeing in qualifying. So I gotta think that's the changeover point, right? The next lap, it was probably gonna drop another 2 or 3 seconds. So this is the lap to come down, and we finally see Kasich coming out of pit road. A couple guys that had already pitted though, put on the wet tires, gonna be scooting themselves out in front of them.
So a handful of cars making their way through. You're watching the battle here for 11th as Aaron Thacker, Adam Joseph Mailhot, and Josh Freed find themselves under a blanket through turn 1. They'll make their way down to Montreal. Around the outside for the 66, one car off the road. That's Hammonds again off the road, and I think he's finally called it quits.
Yeah, once the rain starts coming down, it gets a little frustrating for a couple of these guys. Some of them just, you go from driving in the wet to driving in the dry and then back into the wet. It's a lot of change. It's a lot of issues that you're just trying to have to learn on the fly as Darren By able to get through on the inside before the puddles start puddling up down here towards Brundle and Nelson, able to make that move done. Make a pretty clean move. Darren By, who's running really quick in the heat races, trying to get himself back up towards the front. John Combs still in the race lead, and I don't think that he's pitted yet, right?
John Combs has not pitted, but he started this race on wet weather tires.
Ooh, there you go, John Combs.
So right now, only one car is left on the racetrack on dries, and that is Greg Beckman all the way back in 33rd.
Yeah, I would probably come down pit road if I was Greg Beckman. I don't know how he's still out there not wrecking every single half lap.
Couple of cars off the road. Kyle Smith, Ryan Murphy, a couple more. Oh, wow, big crash back here. Tanner Klein and Brian Walsh, going around. Wow, holy cow, just lost it in nowhere for Walsh to go.
Slams coming through. Koffard right on his tail. Koffard moved himself up to the 11th place position already, but he has 28 seconds off the race lead. Obviously differing strategies between him and John Combs. Shane Cameron up there in second. But nonetheless, man, it's been a great drive for Koffard. Already getting himself just about into the top 10 after starting at the back. Only 20 minutes into this thing. This is probably Koffard's best chance at this point. Just got to wait for the Ron Wolf off the racetrack again. And that's going to move Koffard into the top 10. But Koffard's just going to have to wait and see how the strategy plays out, because guys like Combs and Cameron might make this difficult for him with them having that big of a lead and being on an alternate strategy.
Alex Koffard now finds himself off the track. He'll rejoin, and looking like a single car incident for that one. Around the outside of him goes Corey Barrett. 40 minutes are left. And like you said, that rain is coming down about as heavy as it has all day long. And it's not showing signs of letting up from here to the end of this thing.
Yeah, it's not going to. We're at 100% rain through the rest of the race. There's a couple little breaks in the radar, but then they get instantly filled in with a little bit more green. So I'm going to go with the 100% precipitation chance that I'm seeing until 8:15, and we're currently driving at 4:52. So it's going to be coming down at varying degrees of hardness throughout the rest of the race. Right now, in a firm cell of yellow, currently coming over the track on the radar. So not the hardest we've seen, but definitely not the very, very light rain. I mean, the rooster tails have picked up huge.
There's Ron Wolf down towards the tail end of the field. Pit stop update, by the way. Jake Kasich came down on lap number 12 of this race. He is right now running in 6th, and he has got 25 seconds if he wants to get back up to the lead of the race. But he critically is not hitting those lap times. He was a 125.8 last time by. Combs was a 125.4. In terms of the drivers that pitted way before this, the first one up for the guys that pitted around laps 5 and 6 is Jeremy Castro, but he's way back in 23rd. It did not pay off in the slightest.
Romano had a lot of issues through the heat race, through the main event. We see him ahead of Castro right here, coming back down towards Quorum, I believe. And he's done a decent job getting himself back into an okay position, but man, he had so much adversity at the beginning of this race. Him and Koffard start at the back consistently, and it's kind of been a tale of two different races. Of course, I say that Koffard's now even further off the race lead, so Koffard's had a moment over the course of the last couple laps, and looks like here's another one for Jason Lee.
Oh, that is dicey on the rejoin there, as he kind of just backed it up into the circuit, and he got out on that AstroTurf, and that's what sent him around.
Koffard spun himself through Nelson a couple laps ago, so He's now moved all the way back to 16th. I thought it was going to look good for him. Justin Hall here facing backwards through the same corner. It's obvious that that is the corner that is catching people out the most right here. Through Brundle and then Nelson going the fast to left and then into the right where there's just puddles on both sides of the racetrack and nobody's got it right.
That's now 4 that have gone off in a 10-second period in that one corner.
What's his name? Nelson Caleb.
We get a look back on the melee that just happened. There you see Beckman going off the road, and then here comes the party. He's just trying to get it sorted and get the ship righted. There you see another one going off. And behind there's 3. And looking like it ended at 3, but I mean... Yikes, I mean, that corner, it's a doozy. It's a doozy of a corner. It's one of the most tricky corners on this racetrack. Gotta get it right. Oh boy, your race leader, John Combs, hopping over the curb. That puts him under heavy fire now from Shane Cameron.
Yeah, tight between the front two now. Combs maybe struggling on those older wet tires that he started the race on, like you mentioned earlier, through the dry. Could have worn those things out way too heavy. Cameron was running a little bit slower on the same strategy through the dries, but now all over the back bumper now that the rain is coming down in full force. Both these guys completely separating from the rest of the pack with their alternate strategy. And man, Cameron all over the back bumper. Combs coming out of the last corner.
And you saw how much he was just power sliding that thing, trying to get that car back underneath him. Now he's going to look over to the left-hand side of the racetrack. John Combs over on the right and could go for the move potentially into Montreal. Or if Combs overshoots, he could go for here on the exit of 1. The problem is he can't get the power down.
It's just about impossible. You saw that little puddle on the inside of the racetrack that he wasn't able to get there. And yeah, like you said, the visibility's gone. Combs a little bit wider through the corner. He's going to have a better exit because he's got that nose pointed already towards the second apex of the chicane. But honestly, Cameron did a great job recovering and keeping this thing close down the backstretch.
Can't see anything out of the windshield here. The only clue that Combs is even there is the tail lights. And this is on the dash. It's worse from the driver's seat.
And this is the tough corner. This is why people have been wrecking in this corner the whole time. They can't even see where the puddles are, right? If you're following somebody down into Brundle and Nelson, you got no idea where the puddles are. The puddles shift every single lap, especially whenever the rain's coming down lap after lap. The cars are coming through, pushing the reins aside ever so slightly. It changes every single time you're through there. So it's not like you can learn. It's not like you can be like, oh, the puddles were here this lap. That means I'm going to run the exact same line next lap and it'll be fine. It could be totally different. You could be running through a puddle that wasn't there the lap before. And now Cameron's starting to lose ground as we go through the slower sections. It just seems it's like it's a little bit harder to stay close to somebody in the slower sections. You can see the reflection of the cars on
the racetrack. I don't think we've ever been able to really see that. We haven't never gotten a track that's that wet, but you can literally see colored reflections of the cars in the puddles. That's how this track is a lake right now.
Holy cow. iRacing did a really good job.
They really did.
I give iRacing a lot of crap sometimes for some of the stuff that they have. He comes getting by a lap car that spun out right in front of him. That was sketchy. Cameron able to get through. I give him a lot of crap sometimes, but man, they have knocked the Tempest system out of the freaking water. No pun intended.
I mean, they seriously have. I mean, again, huge round of applause to them. I mean, they definitely deserve it. I mean, what a legendary run for them to put in this kind of a weather system. And I mean, look at this. I mean, again, we look at this from the outside, and we're like, oh yeah, we can see where everybody is. Sort of, and head-on shots like these, but we've just seen what this looks like from in-car, and it's nothing like what the TV cameras show.
Koffard and Clayton way off the racetrack. Sorry, Koffard and Barrett way off the racetrack through turn 1. And those two had to have come together through that corner, or one just following the other one off, not knowing exactly where to brake. I think that might be Justin Hall that was stopped up towards the top, and now Josh Reed to the inside of Koffard, but those guys making contact through the corner. Actually, I think that might have been Bueller. And Justin Hall taking the Kyle Busch route through turn 2.
Why are you stopping there? Why would you do that there? That is okay. It's a parking lot down here. Seems
Slightly
like turn 1's the new Calamity Corner.
Slightly questionable, but I'll accept it.
Are there really wrong answers in the wet? The answer is yes, and I think that was the wrong answer.
I would have to agree with you. There's plenty of wrong answers in the wet, and there's not too many right ones. Wow, Koffard just way off.
Yeah, that Corey Barrett just followed them in. And then you're going to watch behind here as this kind of falls apart as they come off of turn number 1.
Oh, Combs is around from the lead. John Combs just wrecked in front of Shane Cameron. Oh, Combs has been hit by a lap car too. Combs tumbling down the running order while we're on the replay. This is unbelievable for John Combs. I can't tell quite what happened. How did he spin this thing out? I just saw him sideways out of nowhere in the braking zone.
Wow,
the thing's already
just locked
sketching
it up.
out sideways on him. He loses it, gets it stopped to where you think, okay, I'm okay, just losing the spot, but he takes it right in front of Jeremy Castro. It takes a big beating.
And that's going to knock Combs well out of the lead. He's now down to third, and he's down by 18 seconds. Shane Cameron, who has not pitted yet, by the way, up by 14 over Jake Casey. This has just turned into a race of attrition.
Has Shane Cameron ever won a beer league race? I don't think so.
I will confirm. I don't believe so, but I will confirm. Oh, Combs. Jeez, fighting it out big with Ronenberg.
So we very well could get our second first-time winner this season already. Man, look at these two going at it. John Combs, not happy that he just lost the race lead and lost 20 seconds to Shane Cameron. Able to fight off Ronenberg for now, but you know he's got the older tires, the tires that have been through the dry, even though they were wet tires. Ronenberg put on the wets after the little dry stint, so you got to think that car's going to have a little bit more grip than Combs.
Confirmed, Shane Cameron has never won a beer league race. He has 9 top 10s and even less top 5s. He's gotten 2 podiums, a second and a third place finish, respectively.
Cameron's off the racetrack. Chasing everybody here.
And that was those podiums came from the Red Bull Ring and the WeatherTech Raceway. Both races run in the dry with the beer league. Critically, Cameron rejoins the racetrack still with a 16-second gap. Never mind, it's down to 8.
Yeah, that was a little...
I didn't think that was accurate, but there we go.
Yeah, it was a little misrepresentative at the top, but only lost half of his lead, so his spin was not nearly as bad as Combs. Oh, seeing a couple guys coming back down pit road. These might have been guys that started on the wet. Oh, is that Verholst in the green WM car up here, stuck against the barrier on the inside of turn 1. Oh, well, goodbye front bumper. Austin Tucker making a move down here to the inside of Bueller for the 9th place position. Oh, John Combs off the racetrack again from 3rd.
Gonna be right across. Jeez.
A little bit of drifty. Oh, no, Justin Hall's gone too.
And that was while we were looking at Chris Flams rejoining the racetrack. Now Castro and Catlin are off the track. I do want to point out, every time you look at a car that's off the racetrack, there's about 3 others that are also off the racetrack somewhere else. There has not been a single second since this rain started coming down where there hasn't been at least 1 car off the road somewhere.
It's just about looking at the one that's the most important at that time. Anytime the leader's spinning or 2nd or 3rd, that's probably the one we should pay the most attention to. And I don't think that we're done seeing those guys spin, right? Cameron made the mistake earlier, losing 8 seconds. I wouldn't be surprised if he made another one, man. He's got a lap car right behind him. I'd be a little nervous having somebody right behind me that can't see me. I mean, you can't see. You can't see.
When you're looking like this, you got to rely that the guy in front of you is braking at the right point, because that's your biggest marker.
And do you trust anybody out here in the wet? I
don't.
No disrespect to anybody, but after what I've been watching in the first 30 minutes of this thing, I don't think I trust anybody.
And there goes Combs again. Taking the tail end out. He's able to get it back sorted. This is what Combs sees out of the mirror. He can't even see the headlights.
You can't even tell that there's a car back. And it's literally half a second that's separating them two.
And critically as well, I think overcast, by the way, is a bit of an understatement on our weather app there, but critically as well, the sun is setting. So visibility is going to get poorer as we race into the evening.
Oh, no. These guys. This is about to get even more scary. I was already kind of nervous. We're verging into that area where it's almost undrivable, it seems like. I gotta imagine whenever the sun goes down, there's just about no chance.
No sign of a code 60 yet either. Have you heard anything about that on the driver chat at all?
I have not seen or heard anything regarding a code 60. So I don't think that we're on to have one at this point. Getting another look at Shane Cameron here. Must have had another bit of a
This is Tanner Klein.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Tanner Klein, but these guys running the same colors, but Tanner Klein in the Highlander car. A little bit further back, just running off the racetrack ever so slightly. Cameron's still up in the race lead, holding that thing nice and steady.
Welsh is around. Scott Fleming is off the road. Darren Bai finds himself facing the wrong way. You know, this would be pretty wild if we got our second caution-free race in a row. Because one race is already, you know, pretty
like
rare.
A 12% chance, right?
Yeah, but getting 2 in a row would be something else. Oh, and into the wall goes Kyle Smith.
What's the exact percentage chance of having a caution-free race?
I wouldn't know. You'd have to ask the bot makers about that. They've told us before. I just can't remember percentages like that.
Well, let's just say it's 25%. Then the chances of
Definitely
having
lower
two back-to-back, having 2 back-to-back would be 6.25%. If it's 12.5% chance of having a non-caution race, it would be a 1.5% chance of having back-to-back. So very rare, very, very rare.
We can have mathematicians double check that in the chat. I would love that. I would
I
love
have a
if
math
that was...
minor.
I would
I'm
still
a
love it if you're
mathematician.
wrong on that.
I just did the math.
I
I'm a
can't let
mathematician.
myself be out-mathed like that, you see.
I have a math minor. I went to college for this.
That means you have a calculator.
No, it means that I was good. But
Oh, there goes Clayton. Carlton and Flams, by the way, are both around. And this is how that one came about. Just never turned in.
Definitely not the piece of tarmac he was wanting to be on. Still probably better than the grass, though.
Everywhere you look, something's going awry. Very few actual battles on the racetrack right now, by the way. Most of the battles are actually gone. Oh boy, well, Carlton just had another problem trying to get back onto the racetrack, it looks like. A little loopsy-daisy gets run into by, I think, 2 there. He's going to call it from there, but right now, this fight here, the only battle within a second on the racetrack, and it's for 6, with Koffard, Tucker, and Bueller.
And ultimately, it's coming down to what you said it was going to come down to, right? You said it was going to be really, really difficult to pass unless somebody drives off the racetrack. And that's what we've seen most of the night. I mean, it's just been mistake after mistake, right? It's Koffard, honestly, pretty evil to pick a racetrack that is super, super tight, twisty corners in certain sections. Both sides of the racetrack have grass rather than, you know, extra runoff room or some tarmac or even a wall, considering we don't have damage turned on in the beer league, or at least we have auto repairing damage immediately. This is about as evil as a track that he could have picked. I mean, you know, the Nordschleifer with rain would obviously be worse.
Nordschleifer.
Yeah,
the Nordschleifer.
Hey, look,
that is
American.
A cardinal sin.
I am Southeastern American. I don't know how to talk. I know how to do math, but I cannot talk in European.
How could you do this? That is, you have just angered the entire European Union against you with that.
Well, you know what? They've made a lot of mistakes, so that's okay. We can have a couple too, which we might be making some, but you know what? We're not going to talk about that.
Tucker, Bueller, still within 7th. But anyway, kind of talking about it, right? You mentioned evil choice. What I'm hearing is Austin Edstrom's pick is now the Nordschleife in pouring rain conditions.
Well, that would make me more evil than Koffard. And that, man, the field spread would be insane. We would have, like, if it was raining, it would take 15, 20 minutes to get around that place. We'd have 3 laps. We would have 3 laps.
Think of the memes.
I'll think about it. I'll think about it. It would have to be the combined. Do they have the combined on iRacing where you run the GP circuit too? Oh, okay.
Dude.
And then that's possible.
They have a whole special event called the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. It's like the second most ran major endurance event of the year. Where have you been?
I'm American.
This isn't even an American thing. This is just an iRacing thing.
I'm a NASCAR fan. All right, I'm trying to learn my road course stuff. But look, whenever you're learning, you make mistakes. By the way, thank God something has just happened that is going to completely change what we're talking about. We got a Code 69 coming up at the end of this lap.
Oh, boy. So it's going to get interesting now. Shane Cameron's lead is going to be annihilated. Kasich was running him down, but this is going to change everything. Because remember, Cameron hasn't pit yet. He's one of the only guys that hasn't. He's now going to be sent all the way to the rear. I think Cameron's chance of winning this race has gone up in smoke.
Yeah, because I feel like everybody else can make it to the end on gas now with the code 69, right? Or code 60, what do they end up calling it? But hey, he gets to come down pit road, take this pit stop, and we're just going to have to wait and see. Does anybody else come down pit road as well? Does anybody else think they can't make it on gas? Right now, doesn't look like it. Kasich flies by pit road. Josh Freed flying by pit road. Scott Fleming looking like he is not coming down either. So I'd have to be sitting in your corner at this point. I think that might be the end of Shane Cameron's streams here tonight.
Well, there's Darren By pulling up alongside. We are under the code 60 for the first time this afternoon. And this race is only going to escalate from here on to the end. Likely going to be a single file restart. We'll see how this is going to pan out in just a moment when we return on Green Flag TV. Stick with us. We'll be side by side.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Green Flag TV. Darkening skies over the Snetterton Racing Circuit. You're on board with Jay Kasich as he takes that slow pace around. We got just under 20 minutes to go, and boy, oh boy. I mean, what a ride it has been this afternoon. The rain looks like it has kind of calmed down a little bit, but not enough that this track's going to be drying out by the end of the race.
And we ain't gonna be dry. There ain't no drying out. There's no chance. It's still spotty rain all the way through. I might have like a somewhat dry line. I have a somewhat dry line, but it's not going to be anything to where we're going to be able to put on dry tires or anything to that manner. Especially, you know, through Brundle and Nelson, you're gonna absolutely need wet tires through the rest of the race through there.
And you see the headlights have just flicked on with these BMW M2 CS racing cars as well. So, not going to be a full night race, but definitely racing into the sunset.
Oh, we got one more car taking a wave around, so I think we got a little bit more time before we go green flag racing. But Kasich, and because this Code 60 has taken such a long time, it looks like a lot of these guys should be able to make it on gas. You know, they all pitted around, 45 minutes ago, 40, 45. And then obviously the slower lap times through the rain let them save a little bit more gas. And now with the Code 60 taking so long, it's absolutely letting these guys save enough gas to be able to get to the end of the race. I don't think any of them are going to have a problem. I'm really looking back further to kind of see where Shane Cameron and John Combs are. And honestly, they didn't fall too far back. They had such a big lead that they were able to come down, take fuel, and only drop back to 9th place for Shane Cameron and 13th for John Combs. So even though the strategy doesn't look like it's going to work out for them winning, it looks like it's going to boost them to some pretty decent starting positions. But I do think we're about to go green.
Ryan Verhoeven still is yet to catch the tail end, but they might have deemed that it's good enough, and it is good enough. Oh boy, one car already into the grass as we immediately get back to racing action this afternoon. And here's the fan out as we work it down to one of the most treacherous corners on the racetrack.
Yeah, I would not want to restart the race right before Brundle and Nelson here in the rain. And, well, Jay Kasich, he's the one that decided where to start, and he's way off the racetrack. He's lost the race lead because of where he decided to start it. Lost a couple positions already.
Not an ideal start there for the Enron number 11 as he's going to hop backwards to third. Now Freed and Fleming sit 1-2. Half a second separate them. Everyone else cycling into the final corner of the racetrack and will hit the pit straight. By the way, caution window is now closed. Offer goes around, and we will not have any more Code 60s for the rest of the race.
Yeah, I think that's Koffard's win window closed too, spinning off from the top 10. Looked like he might have had an opportunity to win this thing with that restart. Everybody bunched back up, and man, we just lost it coming out of the last corner.
And the rain is kicking up again.
Yeah, the rain is definitely coming back down again, and, well, the entire field is bunched up, so I got to think that we're going to have some mayhem coming down to turn number 1 because these guys cannot see whatsoever. John Combs on the outside through the grass because he went through a puddle on the very outside, going to lose that spot to Thacker. But it looks like everybody else is getting through okay until we come down to turn number 2, where we're all sliding down on the brakes, just trying to make it through without wrecking.
You see the headlight beams trying to cut through the mist here and the din as you see one more car. I think that was Dupuis that just about went off the road. Working our way back around under the hill. There goes Freed. There goes Fleming. Kasich and more. Overall, I think a much tamer restart than you and I were expecting.
Yeah, I would have thought that more drivers would drive off. Oh, well, there's one getting spun around here through Nelson. But I thought, turn 1, that's Jason Lee. I thought coming through Nelson and making it turn 1 after the restart was going to be a lot more difficult for folks. It really only turned out to be difficult for the race leader. You would have thought that he would have had the easiest time, but he just overshot the corner, didn't give himself an opportunity, and let 2 guys squeak by. Luckily for him, it looks like he might have an opportunity coming down the front straightaway to take second back, as Fleming didn't have a good run out of the corner, but Kasich not really gaining as much as I thought. Man, everybody having issues through the last corner. Matthew Dupuis around 2. Alexander Bueller having issues. It's definitely starting to kick off a little bit for these guys about mid-pack, further back. It's just where you can't see, it seems to be difficult. The guys up front not having too many problems.
Alvarez and Bueller both around in the front straightaway, and a hard crash for both on the pit straight. Watch here as Alvarez just drifts across the nose of Bueller and sends them both hard into the Armco.
Yeah, I don't know if Alvarez thought he was going to get clear of him or if Bueller just started turning right ever so slightly down the straightaway. And like you said, it looked like Alvarez just kind of cut across the nose. Couldn't quite tell from the angle exactly who was at fault in that one, but you know, in the rain, just maybe a little bit of visibility issues and thinking you're going to clear a guy whenever you hadn't yet. Unfortunately, Alvarez and Bueller kind of going for a ride there, but Kasich still trying to recover, almost dived to the inside of Scott Fleming. That might open himself up to Giovanni Romano, as it looks like Austin Tucker went through the grass, getting himself a little bit of a slowdown, but Josh Freed starting to pull away up in the race lead.
1 second to the good for Josh Freed. He's got a handful of race wins under his belt, but he would love to notch another one into that column this afternoon. Here is another bunch trying to go double file as we work into the final sector and the final corners of the racetrack. That is Brooks Clayton getting around, Chris Flams, and more off the road is Ronenberg.
Yeah, Ronenberg hasn't had a perfect night, not the night that he wants. He's had plenty of speed in this car, just has not been able to put together the full race, get himself up onto the podium, but I feel like he's definitely got the speed to do it. Just has had a lot of issues. A couple guys almost going side by side for second further up the racetrack, though. Kasich not willing to give up that second place position, right? He lost it earlier. He's not willing to give up the fight for it, at least. He is trying everything he can to get past Scott Fleming for the second place spot to give himself a chance at Freed, but as those guys keep fighting, Freed is just driving away. And no, Shane Cameron, the guy we thought might be able to win it earlier if everybody had to come back down pit road, spinning it through turn 2 from the top 10.
No joy today for Shane Cameron. That race win will remain ever elusive as many drivers like Aaron Thacker in particular can attest to having it be right there. You lead so much of the race, and then it just gets sniped away from you at the last minute. 10.5 minutes are left. Koffard gets around Murphy, and now further up the road, Bright and Clayton are going at it.
Still a lot of battles left on the racetrack. Chris Bright around the outside, getting passed by Brooks Clayton, not able to put up a fight. Clayton able to get himself up to 11, setting his sights up to Ron Wolf, but Josh Freed's had an issue up in the race lead. He's giving it up to Scott Fleming, and Jake Kasich goes through to second as well.
Big issues for Freed to the final corner. This is what happened to the number 3 entry. As he's gonna slide her in, kick the tail end out on entry. Didn't go fully around, and that is what kept him from losing out more.
I mean, it's just been one thing after another out here with the rain coming down. Nobody having any idea how to race through here perfect, and I don't blame any of them. It's just been treacherous conditions out here all night long. Just about impossible for these guys to actually find any type of grip out on the racetrack, and, well, the only two that are doing halfway decent are Scott Fleming and Jake Kasich up at the front right now, but even those guys have made mistakes all night long. Kasich restarted in the lead and drove straight off the racetrack immediately. And now, ever since Fleming took the lead, Kasich hasn't been able to get right up to the back bumper of him like he had been whenever they were driving for second.
It's not going to stop him from trying. How about Giovanni Romano with a chance to win this race? He has fought his way up to a third place spot. Haven't seen much from Romano all night tonight, honestly. He's been running a very, very quiet race. Minimal mistakes, albeit he has made a few errors. And now we see him closing in on the top 2 as you see Fleming kick the tail end out and give Kasich a massive run. Could Romano take his yet another win on the season?
Oh boy, Romano closing in on these guys, but more importantly, Kasich closing in on the back bumper of Scott Fleming for the race lead, coming down into turn number 1. Kasich looking to the outside. He breaks a little bit earlier. Fleming's a little sideways, getting into the corner. That's going to let Kasich get to his right rear as we come through turn 1 and down the straightaway to turn 2.
Making our way down the stretch here, hard on the binders. Kasich is through into turn number 2, that time by. Great move there for Kasich to sell the dummy and go for the over-under on Fleming.
Great move for Kasich, but Fleming 2 corners in a row, just having that back end step out on as he got under the braking zone. But now this is where Kasich had the issue on the restart. This is the first corner on the restart. This time he has somebody in front of him to kind of judge his braking zone on, but can Kasich get through here clean? Now that he's out in front, he's going to really hug that apex through the second corner. And man, that's a good corner from Kasich. Able to pull away from Fleming ever so slightly and stretching the gap over Romano even bigger. And the big thing here for Kasich, he's got that guy in front of him. Most of the time, I feel like that's a detriment but he kind of sees the braking zone, kind of has an idea. Well, I think it's still going to be a detriment. Verhulst is really slow right in front of him.
Still is not over until it's over, and a long way to go still for Scott Fleming. Fleming, another one of those drivers that has never won a beer league race. In fact, he has never won any race in league racing competition. A lot of second places, but never won in the win column. His last podium came at the Red Bull Ring. Went 46th to second, was only 300ths away from victory there, if you remember that one.
Could it be any closer? Could it be any closer? Tonight might be the night where it gets closer for Scott Fleming. He's still within shouting distance of Jake Kasich. Austin Tucker almost ran off the racetrack from 6 down into turn 2. We got a side-by-side battle coming down into 1. Koffard trying to go the outside around Adam Joseph Mailhot, I believe. Actually, I believe that was a lap car that he ends up getting.
No, that was Mailhot.
No, it was Mailhot. Excuse me. Mailhot having a really good night up in the top 15.
And now Koffard trying to size up one more, looking to get around Darren By. Again, it has not been Koffard's season. I got to be honest, I'm not convinced that Koffard's going to be another champion this year.
I mean, it's just been tough for him to go from back to front. And, you know, he did it today. He got up towards the top 5, and then he was the one that made the mistake, and this was his track pick. He goes around the outside of By here to at least pick up a couple more points. But I got to be honest, I kind of agree with you. It's been a bit of a shocker of a season so far from Koffard.
At the front, with 6 minutes to go and an estimated about 5 laps or so, Jake Kasich continuing to lead the way, now pulling the gap ahead of Fleming and Romano. Giovanni Romano trying to push himself to get up to the number 2 spot and potentially a race win. Looking to go for the over-under. A bit of a shot to the shorts there for Fleming.
These two battling for second is just letting Jake Kasich scoot away. Oh, Fleming way deep on the binders. Is he going to make that corner?
He sure will.
Scott Fleming, I can't believe he made that corner. He was way far back from Kasich and just drove it in so deep he cut off 4/10 off the lead.
And they're double file as well for 4th with Freed and Blevins going at it. Kyle Blevins on the outside, Freed on the inside for the incoming corner. Should be a pretty easy pass to make for Freed, and he's going to secure that. Oh, no! He gets hit in the middle of the braking zone, and Freed's off the road.
That's so tough for Josh Freed. He was just in the battle for the lead a couple laps ago and did everything right to take the position away, but Blevins just shucked him out wide, and oh, bad to worse for Shane Cameron, man. Outside the top 20 now for Cameron. Just heartbreaking with how good of a night he was having just 20 minutes ago.
Less than 5 minutes to go. Scott Fleming, Giovanni Romano, Kyle Blevins, Austin Tucker, Freed, and more, all still trying to run down Jake Kasich for the win. Right now, I think it's between Fleming and Romano. If Romano wants to get up to second, though, and try to run down that number 11, he's got to make that move soon.
Yeah, he's just not been able to actually get up to the front, too, and make a move, right? Romano typically really, really quick. And, you know, he's still up here in the top 3. It's not like he's had a bad night, but he just hasn't been able to kind of get the overlap across the back bumper of Scott Fleming or Kasich whenever Kasich was the guy right in front of him. I don't know exactly what's going on with the 99, but he just does not quite have it. And Kasich went way wide there through turn 2. And turn 2 seems to be his weak point because that's the second lap in a row. He's given up time to the 2 guys behind.
Working down the back straightaway. Should be coming to 3 or 2 laps to go, depending on where the clock's at once they get there. Kasich is losing time back to Scott Fleming here, so time is starting to run out just a little bit more. Fleming was down the last few laps, but when we actually compare that to sector times, you can see the difference here in this one. Fleming closing in 2/10 this lap alone.
Yeah, down to 8/10 of a gap, the distance between first and second. Can Fleming do anything through the last couple corners? Oh, Ron Wolf way off the racetrack. Having to come back on. He's going to drop outside of the top 15. But Kasich struggling, man. He is absolutely starting to have some issues over the course of the last couple laps. And Fleming, that's going to be the first lap that he's really made some decent headway over the course of the last couple. 3.5 tenths just about that he was able to catch up. And look at Romano, all the way half a second faster than Kasich.
Romano's quicker. He's just got to get around Scott Fleming. Right now, Fleming is really much being the cork in the bottle here. Romano trying to go the long way around turn 2, trying to send Fleming in. Fleming going around. He will catch it, but then caused him to lose any time that he gained on the last lap there.
Yeah, they got it down to about 3/4 of a second and then instantly back up to a 1-second gap just in the first couple of corners. A little bit of contact there between Fleming and Romano, just letting Kasich get away. But you know, we've seen it time and time again. There have been mistake after mistake after mistake, even from the race lead. You can't say that this thing's over, and Kasich's off the racetrack. I jinxed him. Kasich's off the racetrack, and Fleming's through to the lead.
Giovanni Romano gets through for the race, for the second place spot as well. Now, Scott Fleming once again can taste not just his first ever beer league win, but his first league win altogether. This would be absolutely massive for Scott Fleming. He's run in the Canada Racing League, the MLS Miscellaneous Results League, the Track Limits Racing League, and of course the Beer League. Hasn't gotten a win in either of them over the course of 35 starts across so many disciplines. What it would mean to take win number 1 this afternoon.
And that's going to be the white flag right there. I didn't see Barney waving a white flag, but it was absolutely under 1 minute and 25 seconds that we crossed across the start-finish line. So this is going to be 1 lap to go. They're going to cross the start-finish about 3 seconds after the timer goes.
Oh, he's too deep!
Oh, but he's got the left-hander up next, so he'll be okay. But Romano's going for the over-under. Does he have the momentum coming down the back straightaway? Fleming already going defensive.
Fleming goes defensive. Romano's gap down to a 10.5. He's trying to pressure Fleming into a mistake. Down to a 10th. Side by side. Enter the final sector. Romano backs out this time around. Fleming drifts out. Flips that apex perfectly. Romano! No! Romano throws it sideways out of the corner, and that's going to let Scott Fleming get away. He's just got to run these next 2 turns clean. Scott Fleming coming around through the final series of corners. Win number 1 is right there. Gaps back down to half a second. 4/10, 3/10, almost a quarter to the back bumper. Romano gives a tag, but Fleming comes off the final corner. 3/10 of a second. It's not going to be enough. Scott Fleming, first league win on iRacing. Maybe not. No, they're going for another one.
It was the timer was at 0 coming out of the last corner. Scott Fleming's been hosed. He has to go 1 more lap. What is going on? Romano all over the back bumper again through 1 to the outside. Scott Fleming has been hosed. What is going on?
If Scott Fleming loses this race, he is being robbed. I want that on the record right here, right now. Fleming is the race winner in my eyes, no matter what happens on this final lap. That should have been the last lap right there. iRacing screwed the pooch with this one. Scott Fleming needs to hang on to win this race.
Down the back straightaway for what should be the final time this time. Scott Fleming, this is the most important corner right here of his iRacing career in terms of league racing. Can he get it right? This time he's sideways ever so slightly. Romano gonna be able to get closer. And remember, through quorum last time, Romano was way better than Scott Fleming, and this time he's way closer.
Trying to get back to it. 2 corners to go. Will this time could he see the checker flag this time around? Romano is right there, down to a 10.5. Does he go for the bumper? Looking right, cuts back to the left. It's going to be a drag race. Romano kicks the tail end out. Scott Fleming, this time the checker flag is waving. And off the final corner, this time, Scott Fleming will hang on for the win.
Oh my goodness, what a drive from Scott Fleming. So nice that he had to do it twice. What a job. He won this race 2 times over Romano. Hell of a job, Scott Fleming, for your first league win.
That reminds me a lot about, I think it was about the 2021 All-Star race.
Yeah.
That left a sour, that would have left a very sour taste in my mouth. Credit to Romano. Romano's a great driver, but if he had won that on the final lap, that would have left a real sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah, that timer was at 0 for, what, 5 to 10 seconds?
More than that.
It felt like an eternity. I couldn't imagine what Scott Fleming was feeling on that last lap.
There's been times it's been close, but that wasn't even close. That should never have gone on for that extra lap.
unless our timing and scoring was off from the iRacings, but I don't
By
think that's
20
ever
seconds? No,
yeah,
that doesn't just
I don't
happen.
think that's ever happened. I don't think that's ever happened. So I'm lost on it. I'm happy that the rightful winner ended up rightfully winning.
Now there you see one car in the grass as he crosses the line. Oh boy, just hear the smashing noises in the background, but here comes the rest of the field. Giovanni Romano will be left wanting for one more this afternoon. Boy, what a dramatic way to end this race, though.
It was a good race too, man. I gotta say, Koffard's evil, but that was a good pick from Alex Koffard. I mean, it gave us plenty of action the entire race. Even whenever it got spread out due to different tire strategies, it still felt like the race was always on. The mistakes were always coming, especially from the front of the pack. And then after the Code 60, I mean, it was just pure chaos. The lead kept changing hands left and right. Kasich threw it away a couple of times, especially really late. And then what a defensive drive from Fleming to be able to hang on to the race lead for his first league win on iRacing over one of the best drivers in the beer league, right? Romano is a previous champion, two-time champion in the series. Great job, Scott Fleming.
We'll take a look at your official post-race results here this afternoon, and coming home with this one, Scott Fleming, your official winner by a quarter of a second over Giovanni Romano. Try as he may. Jake Kasich, tough brain for the number 11. He'll finish up in third this afternoon. Kyle Blevins was in fourth, Tucker in fifth. Freed was in sixth with John Cobes in seventh, and it's Chris Bry, Brooks Skoyton, and Corey Barrett rounding out the top 10.
11th place was Ron Wolf, Tyler Agostino in 12th, Darren Bay in 13th, Alex Koffard rebounds to 14th, Adam Melhott with a great finish up in the top 15, Eric Cronenberg 16th, Jason Lee in 17th, Tanner Klein 18th, Shane Cameron 19th, and Ryan Murphy rounds out the top 20.
From there, it's Matthew Dupuy in 21st alongside Antonio Alvarez, Tyler Carlton 23rd, Thacker 24th, Flams, Harrison, Smith, Babcock, Castro, and Brian Walsh round out the top 30.
Going back down to 31st, Alexander Bueller, Karsten Catlin, Ryan Verholst, Greg Beckman, and Justin Hall with the top 35. And then rounding out the field is Alexander Hammonds and Blake Gamble.
And with that, we'll get the chance to take a chit-chat here with all the drivers that come home this afternoon on the podium. And we'll look to kick it off first and foremost with the man of the hour, Scott Fleming. As it's been a long time coming, and boy, oh boy, he's finally going to get the chance to celebrate his first ever league win on iRacing. Scott, this is a huge day for you, and as Austin put it, a drive so good, iRacing made you do it twice. What were the emotions when you came off the final corner, the clock had expired before the final turn, and you didn't get the checkered flag?
That was pretty wild. I mean, I didn't have much hope at the end there, and all of a sudden a door opened up, and it was just a matter of me and Gio being left. And something like that happened last season, I think, in the a couple seasons ago in the GT4, and he got the better of me there. So it's nice to kind of get the upper hand here and seal the win.
You had to really work for it tonight. You did start in the top 10. You managed to pretty much remain around the top 10 for much of racing action this afternoon. Your first win, though, it's been a long time coming. I think this is, what, your 36th, 35th start now that you've had to take and going winless. So now that you finally have it in the win column, what's going to be the game plan going forward?
I don't know, man. It's a wild roll of the dice every week with these guys, and it's so much fun to be here. So it's just a matter of showing up every week and putting in a good race, and just hope to see many more of them.
We look forward to the week after this one, and well, points-wise, do you have championship goals by the end of the season?
We're going to play it by ear there. We'll see how things go with the rest of the season. There's still lots of time left, lots of races. And if Koffard has any other crazy timelines like these, we'll see how it goes.
Sounds like a plan. Scott, congratulations on taking your first ever race win this afternoon. We'll look to get you sorted once again for next week.
Thanks, dude. Take it easy, man.
Scott Fleming comes home first place this afternoon out of Courtenay, British Columbia, up in Canada. It's a Canadian 1-2 podium this afternoon. Giovanni Romano was the second of the drivers that brought it up, and boy, he made a run at the podium. Wasn't quite able to get the job done. He's standing by with Austin Edstrom.
Oh, Romano, what a good race between you, Kasich, and Fleming coming down to the end of that one. Coming up to the white flag, though, it looked like it was going to be the checkered flag, and you were just barely off of his back bumper. Were you thinking, oh, I got a second chance at this? Oh, my goodness. And what were you thinking coming to that white flag?
Well, what I was thinking to the not white flag was where's the white flag? That was interesting. I guess the sim used the fastest lap or something from the beginning of the race to determine the cutoff. So I guess I got a bonus lap. Although I don't feel like I deserved the bonus lap, but it was good. It's really hard to pass here. I think even in the dry and in the wet, it's like you're kind of just waiting for someone to make a mistake. And I think I had the speed to do it, but you can't just drive through the guy in front of you. And Scott defended really well, and he earned it.
Yeah, coming out of the last corner after y'all came through Coram, and then obviously the last corner of Murray's, it looked like he definitely came out of the corner a little shallower than normal just to make sure that you couldn't get that undercut on him coming out of the corner. But man, you were so much better than him through Coram on those last 2 laps. Was there anything different you could have gone through that corner, whether it go to his outside? Could you have maybe found some more grip out there to potentially put you side by side going into that last corner, or was that just a little bumper tap that you ended up giving him through Murray's all that you could really do?
Yeah, I don't think going around the outside would have worked out. I think the track grip was at best uniform, at worst probably kind of dirty out there, so I don't think it would have worked. And what I was trying to do was, into the last corner, if that's called Murray's, and then Murray's, I was trying to get the undercut because I kind of noticed everyone else was taking a pretty shallow line into there in that last 15 minutes. So I was trying to take advantage of that, but yeah, it was just, he parked the apex pretty much just as much as he needed to, so I couldn't get under him, and the best I could do was kind of, just give him a kiss.
Well, Gio, it was a heck of a race. You obviously coming from the back, put on a great show again, able to get up to second. But whenever that Code 60 came out and it kind of bunched up the field, it really gave a whole new host of guys an opportunity to get into this thing. And man, the entire top 5 kept it close towards the end of it, and I felt like just about any one of y'all could have won it. You mentioned it was so unbelievably tough to pass. Does it make it even harder whenever you're all bunched up on top of each other like that in the rain, where you just cannot see through the spray? Because we kept mentioning it on the broadcast, how difficult it was to see anytime we go on the onboard. Did that just add to the difficulty even more, where you couldn't even tell where the back bumper of Fleming was if you were, 3 or 4 tenths back?
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're, not so bad if you're like the second car in line, but when you get third, fourth, fifth, like you can't see the brake markers anymore. So like I was weaving, sort of driving offline on the straights, not because there was more grip, but because I could at least try to spot the braking markers. So that's definitely a big challenge, big part of it.
Well, Gio, big congratulations on the podium yet again. Very consistent of you. It seems like we talk to you just about every week. It feels like, but again, great finish for you. Congratulations, and we'll see if you can make it one spot better next week.
Yep. Thank you.
Alrighty, that was your second place finisher of Giovanni Romano. Next up, we're going to pull up the third place finisher of Jake Kasich. He's going to be standing side by side with Nolan.
Boy, what a wild ride we had here this afternoon from Jake Kasich. I mean, kind of walk us through this one. It was a great showing for you here this afternoon. Kasich, third place at the end of the night. I know, though, you're probably thinking, though, what about that one race win? I mean, you had it right there, and it falls away. A podium is still great, but what could have been tonight?
Yeah, I gotta say, first off, congrats to Gio and Fleming. They had a really good race. They were strong, and, it was definitely kind of tough right there. I just made a couple of mistakes going into, turn 3 there and turn 4, and that just kind of messed me up. And, the whole race was really tough, getting that dry to wet transition right. I think I made the right call there, and honestly got really lucky, deciding whether to stay out that extra lap or not. And navigating the wet in these cars is a lot of fun, but it's awfully challenging. So I'm really happy with the podium, but definitely disappointed I couldn't pull off the win.
Overall, though, still great points on you this afternoon, and you've been getting some good points so far to kick off the first 3 races this season. Title bid looking like it could be on the cards potentially if you can keep this momentum going forward. Is that going to be the case?
I'm definitely going to try for it. I think if I can maintain consistent finishes, and if Koffard and Gio can have a couple of bad races, that aren't drop races, I maybe have a pretty good chance. It's really just going to be about just trying to get those consistent kind of top 5 finishes with a podium whenever I can. And if I can pull that off, I think it's definitely possible.
Well, we wish you the best of luck then whenever we go race it again, wherever that may happen to be. Congratulations, though, on taking a very strong race this afternoon, and we'll look to see you when we go racing again 2 weeks from now.
Thank you.
What a great showing here for Jake Kasich this afternoon as he comes home third at the end of the night. Tell you what, that was a good race, though, overall, Austin. I mean, strong driving all the way throughout. I'm a bit sad that next week we're off. I mean, it's the first off week of the season, first off week of the year, and it's a bit of a shame that we're not going to be back for more.
Well, sometimes you need a little bit of a break, right? But
Yeah.
dude, what a race. The finish of that was fantastic. Fleming almost got hosed, right? And he had to win that race twice. What a way to win your first race, right? I mean, having to win your first race 2 times over, that's something most people don't have to say that they have to do. So what a job from Fleming. And you could hear it in his post-race interview, right? I could hear him breathing heavy. That's how hard he was driving,
yeah.
right? There are times you get out of the car and you're just huffing and buffing. You're sweating, even on a video game like iRacing. And it's because it just means so much. To get that first win especially, it means so much. You're going to drive your butt off as much as possible, and that's what Fleming did tonight. Big congratulations to him on getting his first win.
He did everything he had to do, and there's a lot more drivers that have got to do what they got to do in the next few weeks. 2 more series still early in their championships. The PRA Revolution Workshop Pro Series swings out to the Great Lakes. Well, they'll be duking it out at Michigan International Speedway on Friday night. Derek Watson and I bringing you all the action from there. And in Austin, you're back with me in the booth on Saturday night for the Nevada 150 for the SRA IEL Truck Series. A wild opening 2 races. The first non-super speedway race should be a good one as well. And then it's round 2 of the playoffs. Michael Thorpe Jr., runner-up in the regular season points, now in a practically must-win scenario after he drops out from technical issues in the opening round. So that'll be round 2 from the round of 12 at Watkins Glen International. The OMSRO Cup Series hoping to bounce back from a caution fest at Phoenix for the second race of their Western Swing at Las Vegas Motor Speedway on Tuesday night. The Beer League is off. They'll be back, though, in February. If you want to find out more about who we are, what we can offer you, check us out today at www.greenflagtv.com. My name's Little Ramble alongside Austin Edstrom. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks, wherever we may be racing on the Beer League.